What's going on, guys, and welcome to episode 259 of Hashtag AskGSM here today for November 14th, 2018. I am Graham GSM Matthews. Hope you guys are doing well. Of course, quite the newsworthy week in the world of WWE. A new WWE champion for the first time in over a year has been crowned. Becky Lynch is hurt. Ronda Rousey and Charlotte on Sunday Survivor Series this coming weekend, as well as NXT TakeOver War Games 2. Quite the weekend coming up. Quite the week we've had already. Here on Hashtag, I'm breaking down your questions from Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. If you want to send in a question to the show, you can tweet me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the hashtag AskGSM. On Facebook as well, facebook.com/Graham.GSM.Matthews. And finally on YouTube right here on this very video. Drop your question down below on the comment section right below this video. I'll include your question in next week's edition. For Facebook, of course, like I said, drop your question on the post I usually put up on Tuesday nights as well. Before we get started here, quick plug for my new article for Daily DDT, my exclusive interview with WWE Hall of Famer, the former 11-time WWE World Champion, the Rated R superstar Adam Edge Copeland, now on Daily DDT, talking to yours truly, all about the upcoming season of Vikings on the History Channel. We're talking his return to SmackDown 1000, the Edge and Christian show, how WWE helped prepare him for his acting career, and so much more. It was a great time talking to Adam. Awesome dude. Check out the interview in written form right now on Daily DDT. So, with all that being said, guys, let's get started here. First question from the YouTubes. Captain Sunshine, their question was, what was up with Ronda Rousey calling Becky Lynch a quote-unquote millennial man on Raw? I have no idea. I don't know what the fuck she was going with that promo. I have no doubt that that was a WWE creative sanctioned promo, that it was all from WWE or the creative team's mouth and not Ronda Rousey's. You know, I will give Ronda credit. She's not really that natural of a talker. She kind of comes across as uncomfortable or inorganic or unnatural sometimes in the microphone. But by and large, since she showed up in WWE, I would argue that she's done a lot better than most people thought she would on the mic. She has fared a lot better for herself on the stick than I think anyone ever expected her to. So props to her for that, but this was not one of her better promos. Maybe not because of the delivery, which was, which has been off in previous promos with like fucking a societal sore is what she called Nikki Bella. It felt so fucking forced. But, the delivery of her promo on Monday wasn't as bad as the content itself. She was talking about fucking avocados and millennials. Like, what the fuck does it have to do with anything? It was so stupid. And I love Ronda, but the more dumb shit they give her to say, I feel like the more people will turn against her. And I feel like she was probably going to get booed anyway on Sunday at Survivor Series when she faced Becky Lynch, just because Becky Lynch is so fucking hot right now. She's on fire, straight fire, no pun intended. That I think Ronda likely would not have been favored against Becky regardless, but that promo did not exactly work in her favor. Was not exactly the best way to endear her to the audience. So I don't know what the hell she was going for with that promo. I think they're around the same age anyway. Aren't Ronda Rousey and Becky Lynch like the same age, like mere days apart? That's what I read online. I'm pretty sure that's the exact, they're exactly the same age. And I might be mistaken, but she can't be too much younger or older than her or whatever. But regardless, whatever the case might be, bringing up the fact that she's a millennial and that she's a fucking avocado, some dumb shit like that, what the hell does that have to do with anything? I think the build, again, by and large, for Rousey and Lynch, before they fucking blew it up because Lynch got hurt, before Becky got hurt, I thought the build, by and large, was really, really good. But Rousey talking about all this dumb shit, it's like, it really solidifies how Becky's the better one of the two on the mic right now, and just in general. And Becky's never really been the strongest talker. That should be said as well. Becky's never been the most natural talker either. Yet for whatever reason, whether it's the content she's being given or given the fact, maybe she's just giving poor material, but she's making the most of it. I'm not sure what the case is, but Lynch has been outshining Rousey ever since the feud started. And granted, it's obviously over now abruptly because Lynch got hurt. But still, I thought that promo was really weird to say the least. Captain Sunshine's second question here. How shit is it that Becky Lynch got injured? Yeah, the timing could not have been worse. I mean, Becky getting hurt just in general sucks. I don't think Becky's ever really missed time off from the ring. Has she? Becky, I think, has been one of the most consistent performers in that women's division since she showed up on the main roster 3 years ago. Charlotte's been hurt for a while, a few different times. She's been off TV at various points. I know Becky was off TV for like a hot minute when she filmed the Marine 6 earlier this year, late last year. I know that. I know when the Riot Squad debuted, they put her off TV. They took her off TV because she had to go film the Marine, which was why The Miz was also written off TV at that time as well. Then she came back, and I don't think she's missed TV since. But even before that, I can't remember a single time that Becky Lynch got hurt. At least was hurt enough to the point where she missed TV time. I know there was a period where she got hurt maybe 2 years ago when she was SmackDown Women's Champion and she was off TV. She wasn't really even off TV. She was just not wrestling for like 3 weeks to 4 weeks. It wasn't even that long. And then she came back and resumed her reign as SmackDown Women's Champion. So yeah, I thought that was, it sucks. Again, the timing could not have been worse, just because not only is she at the peak of her popularity right now as a heel of all things, which no one I think ever expected, but she was going into the biggest match of her career, bar none. Likely the main event of Survivor Series, let's face it. More people cared about Lynch versus Rousey than any other match in that card. And that card is pretty stacked. Obviously, you have the elimination tag team matches. I could not give two shits about those, but Nakamura and Rollins should be really, really good if given the time and the opportunity to be as good as it can be. Obviously, Brock and AJ Part 2, they had one of the best matches in WWE in 2017 and all of WWE last year. So they're going to have they were going to have another great match before it got changed on Tuesday SmackDown. But I think Rousey and Lynch was the undisputed main event of that pay-per-view. And then Lynch gets hurt because fucking Nia Jax is reckless as all fuck, which I'll talk about momentarily. And that whole issue about Nia Jax and should she be punished for hurting Becky Lynch, regardless of whether it was on purpose or not. Obviously, it wasn't on purpose. What a dumb thing to say. Clearly, she's not going in there on purpose to hurt Becky Lynch. Like, Brie Bella was not going in there advertently hurting Liv Morgan a few months ago. Clearly, that wasn't the fucking case. I don't think anyone really argued, except for a few people, that Brie Bella did it on purpose. Obviously, she did not do it on purpose. She just fucking sucks in the ring. She had a lot of ring rust, she's not good, and she hurt Liv Morgan, and she's gonna hurt herself. I mean, obviously, she's not wrestling anymore. That was merely for the build to Evolution, and she's gone now. But Nia Jax has been a regular on Raw now for years, and she has shown very few signs of improvement. She's just not good at all. But I'll talk about that momentarily. The Becky Lynch getting hurt thing really, really sucks. I think this can be a blessing in disguise, because while I tweeted out on Tuesday that I think it's a mistake before SmackDown even started, because I got the sinking feeling they would replace Becky with Charlotte, and they did, I think it's a waste to go with Rousey and Charlotte on Sunday just because it's a huge match. But just to throw it out there with no prior build whatsoever, I think is a mistake. It depends how they go about it. They could do a non-finish. They could even have, Becky Lynch interfere. Help Charlotte win after what we saw on Tuesday. It's now likelier than ever. Because I was thinking, I even talked about it here in the show. I know RJ pitched it. A few other people pitched it. What if Becky gets help from Charlotte, and that's how Becky wins, and they also set up the 4 horsewomen versus 4 horsewomen feud? And I was thinking, they just got done feuding. That doesn't really make much sense. Well, fuck, they threw that right out the window on Tuesday, because Becky Lynch and Charlotte hugged. Whether it was planned or not, they still fucking hugged on TV. I would assume at this point that Becky Lynch is a tweener. Not that it even matters, because she might be out for a while. We still have no clue. As of right now, as of this recording, she's still the SmackDown Women's Champion. And like I said, this could be a blessing in disguise, because as big of a match as Charlotte and Rousey is, and while I still think they should not have thrown it out there with no prior build at Survivor Series for the silly fucking SmackDown versus Raw shit, I think this can be a blessing in disguise if they instead save Lynch and Rousey for WrestleMania, specifically in the main event. Because more people, again, care about Lynch and Rousey than they do, at this point, than Rousey and Charlotte. And again, I said a few weeks ago, and I'm going to change my mind. I admit I'm wrong. I admit I was 100% wrong. I said there's no way they do Lynch and Rousey in the WrestleMania main event after doing it at Survivor Series, just because Lynch, as hot of a heel as she is right now, she is not the name in WWE that Charlotte is. She could be, but I don't know if the company wants her to be. I feel like they want Charlotte to be the biggest female in the entire roster, aside from Ronda Rousey, which is why I thought they would do it at WrestleMania. And they still might. They could do it on Sunday and do a rematch at WrestleMania, but if they do that, it would be a massive mistake. Because I think the real main event of any real show right now is Lynch and Rousey. There is no match I want to see right now in WWE more than Lynch and Rousey. And I think it's WrestleMania main event material. So, it sucks that Lynch got hurt, but maybe it's a blessing in disguise, because I feel like if they did the match, I have no doubt that Rousey would have tapped her out in 10 minutes, and it's, all right, see you next Tuesday. See you next Monday. See you next season. Whatever the fuck it might be. That was not made to be a CUNT joke. I don't know what I was going for with that, but what I meant to say was like Rousey taps out Lynch, and then Lynch just walks to the back. All right, next challenger. Bring me Nia Jax. Time for TLC. And then Lynch just goes back to facing nobodies on SmackDown, like fucking Lana and Carmella. So I'm hoping that wasn't the plan. It likely would have been. At this point, it doesn't even matter. But at this point, I'm also hoping that they save that match instead for WrestleMania between Rousey and Lynch. And maybe Lynch will get the WrestleMania main event, which I don't think anyone ever expected out of, let alone the women to get the main event. But for Lynch to be a part of that, I don't think anyone could have predicted that. I really don't. Maybe Bayley, definitely Sasha, definitely Charlotte, definitely Rousey, but absolutely not Becky. But she's earned it. She is the hottest star in all of WWE right now, and that angle at the end of Raw this week, regardless of whether she got hurt or not, was one of the best things I've seen from anyone in this entire company in months, if not years. She's a fucking star right now. And to not run with that when she comes back full-fledged from injury, I think would be, again, a massive mistake. Captain Sunshine's third question: could you imagine having watched Daniel Bryan's retirement speech 2 years ago and being told, don't worry, on a SmackDown Go Home show, he's going to win the WWE Championship from AJ Styles and immediately face Brock Lesnar at a Big Four pay-per-view. Also, Patrick Clark is going to do a Prince gimmick, and it's going to be the best thing on NXT. Yeah, if you told me that 2 years ago, I would have said, what the fuck are you smoking? When Bryan retired 2.5 years ago, first of all, I would have never expected AJ to hold the championship, let alone for 1 year, let alone for it to change hands on SmackDown of all shows, which was nothing at the time that Bryan retired. At the time that Bryan retired, SmackDown, no one could have cared less about the show. So the fact that the championship changed hands on SmackDown, with AJ as the champion, Bryan as the challenger, and then Bryan goes in to face Brock Lesnar at Survivor Series, all the while Patrick Clark, who got eliminated early from the latest season of Tough Enough in 2015, to do a Prince gimmick that actually got over on NXT, again, I would have said, can I have some of what you're smoking? And I'm straight edge. I would have said, go home, you're drunk. And it is pretty amazing, though. It really is an amazing time we're living in right now. There's a lot of stuff about WWE that just I don't understand and that pisses me off, specifically on the Raw side. But when you really look at the day-to-day happenings in this company, it's unbelievable about what with what we've come to in a good way. With like AJ being champion for a year, Bryan being back in the ring, Brock Lesnar being a world champion still for probably the wrong reasons. But we're getting Bryan and Lesnar finally at Survivor Series after Bryan retired and then was told that he could wrestle again. So again, the whole thing is crazy. The Patrick Clark shit is just the cherry on top. FD from Facebook: do you agree in my idea that since Raw and SmackDown are always battling it out for brand supremacy at the Survivor Series pay-per-view, the winning brand should receive a huge advantage for the brand for the next year, like guaranteed no pre-show matches, first overall pick of the WWE draft, guaranteed safe number entries at the Royal Rumble matches, etc. I do agree that there should be something at stake. I've always said like the 30th spot in the Rumble. Well, they just gave that away to the winners of the Mixed Match Challenge. So that's clearly not happening. And they're not going to change it at this point. They still might. I doubt it. The Raw and SmackDown stuff means nothing but bragging rights. That's all they're really fighting for, which means nothing. The Royal Rumble thing is really the only thing I think that makes sense. It could also be like, it would be cool if like, okay, the winners get a pick from NXT. We get to choose the next person that comes up from NXT. That would be cool. The Royal Rumble thing is out of the window. And I also, like, giving away the 30th entrant isn't always ideal. In this case, it might make sense. But giving away multiple entries and announcing ahead of time what numbers they're coming in at takes away from the fun of the Rumble. So I wouldn't do that. Guaranteed no pre-show matches. No one gives a shit about that. That changes from day to day. They put matches on the pre-show, they take them off the pre-show. They put matches on the main show, they put them on the pre-show. There's no way that you can plan for what brand gets pre-show matches. That makes absolutely no sense. And in their eyes, the pre-show is not a bad thing. It's all a part of the show. Well, clearly it's not. Only what happens on the main show makes the pay-per-view, not the fucking pre-show shit. So that clearly doesn't make any sense. But I don't like that idea of like, oh, the winning brand doesn't have to be on the pre-show anymore. Like, that doesn't really make much sense because they're going to split it no matter what. That's not really exactly fair. And the first pick of the overall pick in the WWE draft, I like that. There's not really picks anymore. People just show up on certain brands, which is stupid, but that's the way they do it nowadays. They don't think that far ahead. They don't fucking think that far ahead. It's like 4 or 5 months away is the WWE draft. They're not thinking until then. They're just focusing on Survivor Series, so that's not going to work either. But like I said, if they had someone say, if they had the winning brand pick up someone from NXT, which should not be a random thing anyway. Like, I get the post-WrestleMania call-ups like last year, when Absolution got called up, and then the Riot Squad got called up. For what reason? It was so random. Like, they should say that Raw or SmackDown, because they won the Battle of Brand Supremacy at Survivor Series, that either brand gets to pick someone from NXT. People should just not show up at random. There should be contract negotiations, which, again, they've only really done when it's convenient for them. Like when Asuka got called up, there was this whole big thing about her signing a contract with Raw. They promoted her arrival. It was this big-ass deal that Raw gained possession of Asuka from NXT. Again, they'll do that only when it's convenient for them. Otherwise, they could not give two shits. FD's second question, considering the fact that this is recorded the day after, or rather 2 days after, I guess, day after Stan Lee, the icon, the myth, the legend, passed away, can you remember your favorite moment related to Stan Lee, comics, movies, meeting him at events, etc.? Well, I never met Stan Lee, so I can't really exactly say that. Would have been cool. The guy was 95 years old when he passed away. That's unreal. That's really, really crazy. I think his wife actually passed away not too long ago, which was really, really sad. I mean, for anyone to lose anyone is sad, but for you to lose your wife at that age and you're just kind of like 95 alone, I mean, the guy's not alone, but I don't know. I think some people have said, just from what I've picked up from certain fans and other people, that he hasn't exactly been himself since his wife passed away, which is totally understandable. And that was only, again, a few years ago, if I'm not mistaken. So, reunited at long last in heaven, perhaps, but I have no doubt about that, actually. I mean, it's all a matter of what you believe, but that's my personal opinion. Stan Lee memories, really only movies for me, because I was never a big comic guy. I'm a big Marvel fan in the form of the movies. Avengers, the whole MCU. Any one of his cameos is always a treat in every Marvel movie. I pop every single time. I popped when I saw him at Venom, at the end of Venom, when that came out. That was the last movie that he was in, that he was alive for, which was a very good movie, but it's unfortunate that he won't be around to see the final production of Infinity War Part 2, Avengers 4, whatever you want to call it. I'm sure he's probably already seen it, if it has been finalized. Maybe. I mean, I'm not exactly sure. Who knows? I don't think so. Maybe. I don't know. But I know for a fact, I think he already filmed his cameos for that movie, and definitely Captain Marvel, I would assume. And definitely, maybe Spider-Man Homecoming, too. Return from Home or Far From Home, whatever the fuck it is. Maybe. I'm not exactly sure. Just because I think I remember them saying a while ago that filming wrapped up. So I think his cameos are already filmed for that, too. Which might be fitting because he had a special attachment to the Spider-Man character, so... all I'm going to say is that it was it's going to be really, really sad when they show him in Infinity War, and then they show that's going to be sad in and of itself. The whole movie's going to be an emotional wreck. It's going to be an emotional wreck, just an emotional fiasco in the best way possible. But when they show Stan Lee, and then they do the post, in memoriam graphic, the post-movie in memoriam graphic of him, from, he had passed away in his memory. They'll do that for Captain Marvel, too. It's going to be emotional then, but especially for Infinity War, that really kind of wraps up the last 10 years of the MCU. It's going to be a tearjerker for sure. The next question from FD. Do you agree that the WWE World Cup to determine the best in the world, quote-unquote, that highlighted Crown Jewel is the worst pro wrestling tournament that you could ever think of in terms of the booking, the bracket, and the outcome overall? Any other tournaments you can think of that fared worse than the recent WWE World Cup, in your opinion, other than the Brawl for All, of course? That's actually a really good question. I cannot think of many, if any, tournaments I've seen in WWE. You said pro wrestling. I have not watched all of pro wrestling. I cannot attest to that specifically. I'm just going to go with WWE because that's all I've watched for the last 10 years. I mean, I've watched TNA and stuff like that, but I'm talking about, in terms of tournaments. Easily one of, if not the worst, WWE sanctioned tournament I've ever seen in this company. I will agree with that. I've seen some pretty bad King of the Rings and shit like that. The World Cup was even worse because none of the matches stood out. They crammed it all into one night. The winners sucked. The bookings sucked. The crowd sucked. Everything about it meant nothing. The whole best in the world shit meant nothing. The whole thing was a ginormous waste of time. So you would not be far off in calling it one of the worst tournaments this company has ever held. Because the show itself was one of the worst shows they've ever held, that being Crown Jewel. You are right, though, in mentioning Brawl for All. That was also one of the worst tournaments they've ever held just because of the ramifications that it had and people got legit hurt and that it was just a dumb idea to begin with. Oh, like, let's do shoot fighting and put that in a wrestling tournament. Like, what the fuck is that? What the fuck are you going for with that shit? So, yeah, no, definitely one of the worst tournaments they've ever done. I can't say just for certain that it was the worst tournament they've ever done, but it's got to be up there leading the list. Andre G from Facebook, his first question was, or his only question for this week, what are your top SmackDown stars of all time? Or top 10 SmackDown stars of all time? I think I mentioned this or answered this question a few weeks ago, about a month or so ago, before SmackDown 1000. I'll do the list one more time, though. In no particular order, my top 10 SmackDown stars of all time would include The Undertaker, Batista, Edge, Eddie Guerrero, Chris Benoit, Brock Lesnar, Kurt Angle, AJ Styles, The Rock, and Rey Mysterio. And some honorable mentions, John Cena for the time that he had on the show. I'm not going to do a justification for each person, which I think I've already done before, which is why I'm kind of quickly going through the list. But those are my top 10. Honorable mentions, like I said, John Cena, he was on the show for like 3 years. Former WWE champion, tag team champion. I think actually not until after he left SmackDown, but he was still a multi-time United States champion during a stint on SmackDown from 02 to 05. Debuted on SmackDown, so I guess you could say Orton too, but I don't really, when I think of SmackDown, I don't really think of Randy Orton. I think of Raw, so I would not put him on that list. But Cena on the honorable mentions, Big Show, kind of a dark horse for SmackDown. He was involved in a lot of big angles early on with The Undertaker, with Brock Lesnar. Even when the brand split was kind of dying off towards the end, he was a world champion. He was WWE champion. He did a lot of stuff with Mark Henry back in 2011. 2012, he was involved in some stuff as well. So, yeah, I would say Big Show played a pretty important role in the evolution of SmackDown early on. And then JBL, too. I mean, his stint on SmackDown wasn't, I mean, it was long, but he really wasn't known for anything aside from being WWE champion close to a year from 04 to 05. Beyond that, he really did not do much on the brand, but I would still put him on the honorable mentions list. At Reborn Again, John Ritland from the Twitter machine, his first question was, with the recent news of Becky's injury apparently keeping her off the Survivor Series card, is it time for WWE to look at Nia Jax as being someone who was too careless to push? So here's my answer to that question. First of all, they should absolutely address the fact that Nia has hurt not one, not two, not even three, but multiple people in the last couple of years. She almost broke Charlotte's neck about a year and a half ago during an errant, shoulder breaker, I think it was. She tried to go for a shoulder breaker, almost dropped her on her fucking head. I don't think she even cared. She had tried to catch her outside the ring because Charlotte went for her moonsault and Nia missed. And it wasn't Charlotte's fault, it was Nia's fault. Nia didn't catch her. She almost broke her fucking neck. So that was one person. She's legit hurt Bayley before. She caused Bayley to miss SummerSlam last year by injuring her shoulder or something along those lines. She's hurt Sasha Banks a few times. She's hurt Alexa Bliss a few times. Now Zelina Vega back at Evolution. I think there was a fear that she was concussed at the hands of Nia Jax. And now Becky Lynch. That's multiple fucking people. That is multiple people. And again, it's not a matter of, she didn't do it on purpose. Accidents happen. You're right. Shit does happen. But when shit starts to happen multiple times in a row, maybe you start to say to yourself, this girl's not cut out for it. Or she's not that good. Or let's put her back in developmental. She was in NXT for less than a fucking year. Dana Brooke, same thing. Dana Brooke, who is also awful, but I cannot recall her ever hurting anyone. I know she's not nearly as big as Nia, and I'm sure that plays a factor in it. But Dana Brooke, even as awful as she was, she spent more time in NXT than fucking Nia Jax did. Nia Jax was called up within 9 months, maybe? Not even 8 months? She debuted in NXT in late 2015, October of 2015. She showed up on the main roster as part of the draft in the summer of 2016, in July. So yeah, about 8-9 months, 9-10 months. She sucked even then, she still sucks now. I know the whole, body image thing, she's bigger, we want to encourage plus-size models and endorse that and enforce this. Who gives a shit? If people like her, I'm sure she's a great person. She comes across as a very nice, genuine person in Total Divas. But as a wrestler, she's fucking terrible. I'm a nice guy. Should I be in the ring? Absolutely fucking not. Just because Joe Schmo brings in cupcakes for everyone at work and is a great guy and everyone loves him doesn't mean that he should be in a wrestling ring taking bumps. And more importantly, delivering bumps to other people. Where you are fully in control of someone else's safety and well-being. And you're fucking up, not once, not twice, but multiple times with various different people. She's awful. She's awful. And the thing is, I wouldn't even deep push her because she's a fucking safety hazard. Not even because of that, which should also play a factor, but because she sucks. Nia Jax sucks. I have never been intrigued by almost anything that this girl has ever done. Yes, I did advocate for her to be a breakout babyface earlier this year. I thought the whole thing with Alexa Bliss was well done. Beyond that feud, though, in the ring, she's goddamn awful. She is absolutely terrible. She's hurt multiple women. She's no good in the ring. She's no good on the mic. As a character, she does nothing for me whatsoever. And worse yet, this tag team with Tamina has just disaster written all over it. If Nia's hurting people now, I can only imagine how many people both those women will hurt by the time they're put together, by the time the tag team titles for the women are instituted. Because both women are fucking walking safety hazards. Both Nia and Tamina. Tamina should not even be in this company. I don't care who her dad is. I don't care who your daddy is. You're terrible, sister. You're terrible. Take a hike. Get fired. I'm not usually one to advocate for someone to lose their job, but Tamina, she has no business being in this company. Absolutely no business. I'm not sure if they passed on Tessa Blanchard or what the deal was with her. But how the fuck do you pass on someone like that, but you keep Tamina? Her daddy was famous. Tessa Blanchard has a lot of name value. She's a second or third generation wrestler. Okay, so is Tamina. But Tessa Blanchard isn't awful in the ring. She's actually really, really good. I mean, I know we're talking about Nia Jax. I'm getting off topic here, but it's like, Jesus fucking Christ, she's terrible. Both her and Nia are absolutely atrocious. I'm sorry to shit on them, but they should not be de-pushed because they're safety hazards. They're reckless in the ring, which is absolutely a factor. I agree they're careless. I agree they're reckless, but they should be de-pushed because they're fucking terrible, and they have no business being on the main roster. John's second question, if WWE does not introduce women's tag team titles, what would you think of the concept of a women's mid-card title? It's not a bad idea. Honestly, I like that idea. I'm going to be completely honest with you, a lot more than the tag team titles idea. I like that idea a lot more, just because, I still would not introduce more championships for the women. They do not have enough women to do that. I mean, I don't think it's a terrible idea. I think it would be longer lasting than a tag team title, just because you only have so many tag teams. You have Banks and Bayley. You have the Riot Squad, who we've already seen clash a million fucking times. How many times can we see the Riot Squad versus any combination of Natalya, Banks, and Bayley? It's time to move on. I would not want to see that over a set of tag team titles, regardless of whether something is on the line or not. We have Nia Jax and Tamina. Who the fuck cares? On SmackDown, we have the Iconics. Who the fuck cares? We have Deville and Rose, who I'm not even sure are even a tag team anymore. Naomi and Asuka, there's really nothing worth getting a tag team division over. Why do we need a women's tag team division? I know people want more championships for the women. I'm a full major advocate of the women. And even Alexis was asking me not long ago, why aren't there more championships for the women? There's so many fucking titles for the men. Why not for the women? I agree with that. But the thing is, they have way more men than they do women. Way more men. And they don't even use a lot of the women they have right now. It doesn't matter if you put a fucking title on them or not. If you're not doing anything with these women, no one is going to care. No one gives a shit. So, okay, we're going to introduce a tag team title. The Iconics versus the Riot Squad. Ooh, I can't wait. A women's mid-card title might be better for someone like an Ember Moon, who isn't doing shit right now, and is losing to fucking Tamina and Nia Jax. What a joke. What a fucking joke. It might be better off for her. But the thing is, my mindset is, if they weren't doing anything with her before they instituted the championship, why would they be doing something with her after they brought in the championship? You know what I'm saying? NXT has their mid-card championship, which I think they have a big enough roster now to warrant having a mid-card title, the NXT North American Championship. But everyone that has held that championship so far, merely 2 people, Ricochet and Adam Cole, and other people that would have held the gold like Velveteen Dream and a few others, they were already shining anyway. They don't really need a championship to go after. I mean, it's nice. I think it's necessary. But even if you don't have the championship, they're still going to do fine. It just gives the matches they were already in more meaning. But people like Ember Moon, who are barely on TV anyway, and then if they're on TV, they're fucking losing, it doesn't do them any favors. So, again, either you get more women or you utilize the women you have better before you do something like that. So that's been my mindset all along. People want, oh, women's tag team titles. Dude, we never see the Iconics on TV. Why would giving them a pair of meaningless tag titles change anything? It wouldn't. They're just not that good or being booked properly. Either way, I don't care about them. Giving them tag team titles is not going to change anything. It's like putting a fucking, it's like dressing up a piece of poop. It's still a piece of poop at the end of the day. No one gives a shit. I know that was a gross visual, but it's like, what's that old saying? Putting a fucking necklace on a dog, it's still a bitch. Whatever the saying is, same concept applies here. It's like you put the tag team titles on a tag team I don't care about. It's not going to change the fact I don't care about them. Ergo, I won't care about the titles either. John's third question, has there been a Survivor Series card with a weaker build than this year's show in recent memory? I know WWE has run a lot of shows these past few months, but this build for this year feels very lackluster. I think you're forgetting here, my man, that a lot of the build for Survivor Series in recent years has been shit. Last year's was pretty bad, too. I think people saying, oh, they changed up the card. This makes no sense. They did the exact same shit last year. The card for last year's Survivor Series was not set in stone until like literally days before the show. It turned out to be a better show because of the changes, but there was a lot I don't care about. In general, the Raw and SmackDown theme means nothing. That didn't change last year. That wasn't the case in 2016. It's not going to change this year. I do not care about brand supremacy. Maybe at bragging rights 8 or 9 years ago, and even then it meant nothing. But yeah, I think the build has been lackluster because they have given you no reason to care about the show. Even before they change, okay, Bryan and Brock on paper is cool. Like, first time ever, I like it. I'm looking forward to it. It has no build. No build whatsoever. AJ and Brock wasn't much better, aside from the fact that they had their match last year that Lesnar won. This year, the only match on the card that had any general sense of buzz was Becky and Ronda. And they threw that out the window because Becky got hurt. So the build this year has sucked overall for Survivor Series. I'm looking forward to the show on paper. That doesn't mean the build has been great, though. Far from it. But I think you're forgetting here that the build for Survivor Series last year and the year before that, and even the year before that, also sucked. WWE just does not see Survivor Series as a big deal. They haven't in many, 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 many years. And yeah, they'll deliver a fucking gem every once in a while with like the Shield debut or Sting showing up and stuff like that. By and large, though, they do not care about Survivor Series, which is why a lot of other fans also do not give a shit about Survivor Series, because they have given us no reason to give a shit about Survivor Series. So yeah, the build has been weak, but it's been no weaker than any other installment in recent memory. Just because last year was the same shit, the year before that was the same shit. Yeah, people were looking forward to Brock and Goldberg, which ended up going a fucking minute and a half. But beyond that, were people really looking forward to like Kalisto and the Brian Kendrick from 2016? Were people really looking forward to The Miz and Sami Zayn in 2016? I doubt it. 2015, that installment was awful. Last year's pay-per-view was actually the best Survivor Series I've seen in several years, and that's not saying much because the show wasn't really that good. The main event was a major disappointment. I'm hoping this year is different, even with the changes, because I was looking forward to Becky and Ronda, and they had to throw that out the window. Like I said, they had to scrap it because of Becky's injury. We'll see what they do, but I have hope, even though the build has been very underwhelming, to say the least. At Hardy DX Fan, his first question, who has been your favorite and least favorite Intercontinental Champion? That's a good question. I'm only going off of the time I've been a fan for, just because, I can't really say, the Honky Tonk Man, or the Ultimate Warrior, or The Rock. Like, I wasn't around back then. I wasn't watching back then. So I can't really say those guys with, wholeheartedly, I can't say they're my favorite IC champion. I'm purely going off of the champions that have held the championship in the time I've been a fan for. So dating back to 2008, 10 years ago. Quick funny story here. I might have shared this here on the show before. Almost exactly 10 years ago. 10 years ago from 4 days ago. I think it was 10 years ago from 4 days ago. It was the 10th of November of 2008. It was the night that William Regal actually became the Intercontinental Champion. And I couldn't watch Raw that day. I got grounded earlier on in the day. My parents found out, specifically my mom, and it's always the mom. My mom found out that I had awful, awful grades, which they were pretty bad that semester. I think I was in 8th grade in middle school, and I was fucked. I lied to my parents about it. It was a whole story. It's a whole long story, but long story short, I got in major trouble that day. My mom called me, she texted me, whatever, said, "You're not using your phone, you're not using the computer, you're not watching TV. Just go upstairs and do your fucking homework." She probably didn't drop an F-bomb, but she was pretty pissed. So, needless to say, I could not watch Raw that night. Therefore, I could not watch William Regal go for the Intercontinental Championship. The show was in England. I really wanted to see it. I couldn't. I thought Regal would lose. I think he faced Santino. He ended up beating Regal. I didn't see the match live, but I had to have my brother tell me, like, the next day. And I was so pissed. Like, oh, man, I really wish I could have seen that. But I was so happy that Regal became champion. Now, Regal held the championship for 2 months, but I thought it was awesome. Regal was the one who got me into wrestling a few months earlier. So to see, or hear rather, that he became Intercontinental Champion, like, really made me happy. And I could have seen it live and marked that if it wasn't for my goddamn mother. No, I'm just kidding. I was fully in the wrong there to get punished after the shit I pulled that year, to say the least. I was a completely different person 10 years ago. Moving on, though, I would not say Regal is my favorite Intercontinental Champion. I just wanted to share that because it's timely, because it was 10 years ago from this past weekend. Anyway, though, my favorite Intercontinental Champion. I really liked Cody Rhodes as Intercontinental Champion back in 2011, 2012. I thought he did a lot of great things with that championship, bringing back the classic design and defending it a lot and just instilling prestige in that title that had not been felt in a long-ass time. So beyond him, I'm trying to think in recent years. Rollins, I thought, was a great champion earlier this year. He really has not done a lot at all with the championship since then. But, you know, I thought earlier this year he did a great job. Probably The Miz. It's got to be The Miz. I think The Miz has done more for that championship than anyone else in recent memory, at least in the last 10, 15 years. So The Miz is easily my favorite Intercontinental Champion. Least favorite champion in the last, 10 years since I've been a fan for? The Big Show held the belt for a cup of coffee, so maybe him. I'm sure there's a lot of people I'm not even thinking of right now, but yeah, I guess the Big Show. Who has even held the championship? JBL really didn't do much with the title when he held it in 2009. Who even held the championship? Like, I'm trying to think of people who have held that belt in the last couple of years. Wade Barrett was a good champion at points, but they really booked him badly. They booked him pretty horribly. Curtis Axel, that was a dark time for that belt. Who else? You know, when Dolph Ziggler, I thought he was a good champion the first few times he held it. Later on, I didn't really care about him. Who else? Who else has held the Intercontinental Championship in recent years that I can remember anyway? Like 2014, 2015. Yeah, like I said, Big Show, I guess. I liked Ryback's reign for the most part, but beyond that, I don't even know. Like, I guess Wade Barrett, because he was booked so fucking horribly with that championship. But yeah, probably Big Show. I wouldn't say that Wade Barrett is my least favorite, but he was not booked all that well. But yeah, I guess I would say Big Show maybe, or fucking Ziggler the last few times, or Curtis Axel. They would be close to leading that list. His third question, or rather second question, before the third question, his second question, is there anyone on the NXT roster who could secure themselves a place in the Hall of Fame without actually getting called up? I just said this last week. About the whole NXT thing, and okay, what if they have a great career in NXT, but they're shit on the main roster, but they accomplished so much in NXT that they should be in the Hall of Fame? I don't agree with that. I love NXT. At the end of the day, though, it's developmental. It means nothing compared to what you accomplish on Raw or SmackDown. NXT might be better in quality, but it's not the main roster. It's like inducting someone into the WWE Hall of Fame. It's like inducting Joe Schmo into the Hall of Fame because he was the OVW champion. Or inducting fucking Adam Rose into the WWE Hall of Fame. Or Bo Dallas because they both held the FCW championship. Or Alex Riley because he was the FCW heavyweight champion. Who cares? Just because NXT is televised and FCW wasn't, that makes it better? Like, not really. NXT was obviously clearly better, but I'm talking about a bigger accomplishment. It's not. It really isn't. Unless it's like a legend, like a Jushin Thunder Liger. Like, clearly, obviously, he's only competed in NXT, albeit once, but he was in NXT. More matches he competed there than on the main roster, which is none. I'd put him in the Hall of Fame, but he's not really on the NXT roster. So, no, not really. Unless it's like a returning star, like someone who has already accomplished something. Like, so let's say the Dudley Boys came back. I mean, they're obviously already in the Hall of Fame, but what's a better example? Like, Victoria, for example. She came, like Mickie James. Let's say she didn't get brought back for SmackDown. She merely just came in for NXT. Yeah, I would induct her into the Hall of Fame because she was on the main roster before that. But if you're talking about never being on the main roster, then I would say no. Just like Aleister Black is not Hall of Fame worthy because he's been awesome for NXT. NXT really doesn't account for anything in the long run when it comes to the Hall of Fame. It's a minor little accomplishment. Like when Charlotte gets inducted, they can say that she was the NXT Women's Champion at one point, but that's not the sole reason why she's getting inducted. You should not get inducted off of NXT accomplishments alone. That's what an NXT Hall of Fame is for, which they should also not have because, again, it's A, fucking developmental, and B, because it's only been around for 5 or 6 years. And his third question, are there any banned finishing maneuvers that you would like to see return, a.k.a. the punt? Was the punt really banned, though? Yeah, it was banned for a time, but he's brought it back a few times since then. He hasn't used it in a few years, but I clearly remember Orton using it back in like 2013, 2014, maybe even soon after that. Like, I remember Orton using it at a few different points, even after it was banned. And they probably allowed him to use it at least on 1 or 2 occasions. As a regular thing, I agree. It shouldn't be brought back as a regular move. Like, on occasion, it feels more special that way. Beyond that, though, or like just teasing it, I think would be cool. But going for it and doing it all the time is an issue. Just because it doesn't really feel special. It's just a kick to the head. And I do agree with why they banned it. But if you do it in moderation, I don't think it's a big deal. So is it really banned? I'm not sure. The same question can be posed for the Muscle Buster, Samoa Joe's finishing maneuver. We have not seen him hit that move since he got called up to the main roster. Yeah, he went for it a few times in his matches against AJ Styles. Never once hit it, though. And the guy's been in the main roster now for almost 2 years. For all the bullshit that people were like, oh, it's not banned. What do you mean? Why would it be banned? He used it in NXT. Well, listen, Vince McMahon was not running NXT. Vince McMahon clearly remembers Tyson Kidd's career ending at the hands of a Muscle Buster. I'm not saying the Muscle Buster is the dangerous move. I'm not saying the Muscle Buster is the dangerous move. All I'm saying is that I can see why Vince would not want him to use it after it clearly broke the neck of Tyson Kidd and ended his career. So he may want to avoid that PR nightmare on the main roster. Maybe he allowed Triple H to let Samoa Joe do it because it wasn't on his watch. I don't know. But now that he's been on the main roster, he cannot use it. He's only used the Cohina Clutch. I wish he would bring back the Muscle Buster. I don't think it's a dangerous move. I think it was a freak accident with Tyson Kidd. It really wasn't anyone's fault. So I think he should be allowed to use the move again. But I think that's why. Because Vince McMahon probably saw it as a safety precaution after what it did to Tyson Kidd. Now, granted, should Seth Rollins not use the buckle bomb because it ended the career of Sting inadvertently? Absolutely not. So I don't see why the Muscle Buster should be any different. Second question from @RealBrettVresik from Twitter. Has NXT in the long term been a failure since most call-ups have been a bust? Absolutely not. NXT is a way bigger brand and a way bigger platform to allow WWE superstars, and fans specifically, to get familiar with the up-and-coming talent before they arrive on the main roster. I think NXT is a great thing. They don't set up people for failure. I know that someone was using the argument against me a couple years ago, like, oh, NXT should be done away with because people get their hopes up for people on the main roster. You know what? That's not NXT's fault. That's the fucking main roster's fault for abusing these people in the first place. NXT or no NXT, the main roster is going to fuck people over regardless, so we might as well have NXT. It's not NXT's fault for actually showing what these people are capable of before they get to Raw or SmackDown. Get the fuck out of here with that argument. What a dumb thing to say. Oh, NXT's a problem because it gets people's hopes up for how good they can be. They're not actually that, they're way better than they're going to be used in the main roster, so we won't actually show their full skill sets. Get the fuck out of here with that shit. Like, it's the main roster's fault, not NXT's fault, that these people are getting just buried left and right. And I don't use that word loosely, but they are getting buried. The revival has been buried 6 feet under since showing up on the main roster. NXT, though, I would not argue, has been a failure. It has produced many stars for WWE, including Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns, Kevin Owens, Charlotte Flair, Sasha Banks, Bayley, Becky Lynch, a lot of people that have, half the fucking rosters from NXT. Regardless of whether they're world champions or not. Big E, big success in the New Day. Xavier Woods, both from NXT. A lot of good tag teams, a lot of good female and men's superstars have come from NXT. So yeah, I may not be happy with how they used fucking Adam Rose or the Revival. The Ascension had they were never really that good to begin with, but by and large, though, I think NXT has been a major success and has really been an all-new alternative for fans to enjoy something WWE related that isn't Raw or SmackDown. So no, it's not a failure just because WWE has no idea how to use most of these people. That's not on NXT. It's not a failure because the main roster is a fucking failure. NXT is not the failure. They're giving more stars, bringing in more people than the main roster ever could have. Yeah, AJ bypassed NXT, but NXT gave us a lot of big names that you would never have seen on Raw or SmackDown years ago. Ricochet, Adam Cole, Neville, Sami Zayn. I mean, Neville's gone now, but those people would have never made it to the main roster, never even made it under the WWE banner if it wasn't for NXT and Triple H's vision for what wrestling should be. And yeah, maybe part of that is wanting to take talent away from other companies. I see that. I understand that. But at the same time, though, it's worked out. A lot of these people are being used well in NXT. And they belong in NXT, what is supposed to be WWE, the biggest company in the world. That's where they should be. And Triple H has done right by a lot of that talent in his own promotion, that being NXT. At Scarlet1, we got four final questions, rather, for this week's hashtag from at Scarlet1. First question being, did you catch Michael Cole's comment during the Tamina Ember Moon match that Ember Moon grew up idolizing Nia Jax? I didn't catch it. I think I saw Solomonster tweet about it, which is one of the dumbest things I've ever heard in my entire life. Ember Moon grew up idolizing Nia Jax? Hasn't Ember Moon been wrestling for like a decade now? Nia Jax has been wrestling for a fucking cup of coffee. Get the fuck out of here with that shit. One of the dumbest things I've ever heard Michael Cole say, and he said a lot of dumb stuff. That doesn't even make any sense. Aren't they around the same age anyway? Like, what? Just to add a little mini story to a Nia Jax Ember Moon feud? Again, so stupid. Do you think people are going to hear that and actually buy that shit? Just because Ember Moon debuted 6 months after fucking Nia Jax, even though Ember Moon is clearly better than Nia Jax, does not mean she grew up idolizing Nia Jax. What, when Nia Jax was 10, Ember Moon was like 7. I don't know how old they are, but like, I'm pretty sure they're around the same age. Not to mention that Ember has been wrestling way longer than Nia, and she only debuted a few months after she did. So get the fuck out of here with that shit. Their second question, what was the best and worst of Ultima Lucha 4? The best, I thought both parts of it, parts 1 and 2, were both great, which expect nothing less from Lucha Underground, but the whole special I thought was awesome, specifically part 2. Killshot and Son of Havoc had a great match in the main event of part 1. The Mask versus Mask match I thought was great. The Mac and Mil Muertes in the death match I thought was awesome. The main event of Ultima Lucha 4, I almost said Punishment Martinez because I wrote down Martinez. Marty the Moth Martinez versus Pentagon Dark for the Lucha Underground Championship. It was a Ciedo Miedo match. Fantastic match. One of the bloodiest bouts you'll ever see. If it's not your thing, you might not like the match. I thought it was fantastic. I fucking loved it. So, I thought that was awesome. The worst of Ultima Lucha 4, again, not much, but Jake Strong coming out, cashing in the Gift of the Gods Championship and becoming the Lucha Underground Champion. For those not following the show, Jake Strong, I think that's his name, Jake Strong, I'm pretty sure that's what it is. Jake Strong is Jack Swagger from WWE. Yeah, Jack Swagger is the new Lucha Underground Champion. And if that's the final image I ever see of Lucha, if it never comes back, rather, that's pretty sad. So him becoming champion, I understand they built him up very, very strong, no pun intended, over the course of the season in Lucha. But just the idea of Jack Swagger, 10 years removed from his WWE debut as a Lucha Underground champion, a brand that has been determined to be a complete opposite alternative to anything else in wrestling, they bring in Jack Swagger to become their top champion. I don't like that. And then Taya versus Mundo, it wasn't a bad match. It was weaker than anything else on either of the specials. I could see why they did it. It gave Taya a match. It gave Taya an opportunity to avenge the fact that Mundo wrecked her wedding. But as a match, I didn't really care about it. Their third question, have you heard about Stan Lee's passing? I already talked about this earlier. I did. My brother texted me about it. I was really sad to hear that. I mean, the guy was 95 years old. I think most people expected him to pass away sooner rather than later anyway, but it's still really, really sad. Obviously, he had a very big impact on the comic book industry, in the movie industry. The guy's a fucking legend. And he lived a very long and great life and had a tremendous impact, and not only just comic books and movies and shit like that, but on a lot of amazing people. The guy was clearly a sweetheart. I saw people tweeting all day long on Monday and Tuesday about how great of a person Stan Lee was and how much they're going to miss him. So it doesn't matter how old he is. Someone passing away is still very sad. And it was a pretty big loss for Marvel and the entire, really, world. Big loss in, just for everyone on Monday. So I did hear about it. Very sad to hear about that. And like I said earlier, the cameo of his. Specifically, I know he's going to be in Infinity War, or rather in Captain Marvel and Far From Home and whatnot. But specifically the cameo for Infinity War Part 2 and then the post-movie in memoriam graphic for him. That's going to break my heart. I almost cried, if not did shed a tear, when, of all movies, I watched Night at the Museum 3. And Robin Williams, I think that was one of his final movies. I mean, it came out after he died, but it was one of the final movies he did before he passed away. And they showed an in memoriam graphic for him at the end of that movie, and Mickey Rourke, who also died in 2014. So it was a really sad thing for me to see that, because I love Robin Williams. I love a lot of Stan Lee's work. We've seen him in every Marvel movie for years now, especially in the MCU. So it's going to be sad to see him move on. It's sad to see him in the movie. I mean, I'm glad he's in the movie, obviously. I wouldn't want it any other way. But it's going to be sad to see him knowing that he's not here anymore. And the final question for the day, what match are you most looking forward to this weekend? Well, it would have been Ronda and Becky at this point. It's got to be something from TakeOver. If it's not Ronda and Becky, since it's off the cards, of course. I mean, Bryan and Brock is going to be cool. It's a heel and heel thing, so I'm looking forward to it, but I can't say, oddly enough, that it's my most anticipated match of the weekend. TakeOver, the War Games match, should be tremendous. Velveteen Dream and Tommaso Ciampa should be great. Black and Gargano might be the show stealer of the weekend, if they tell the right story and are allowed to go all out. So I'll go with Black and Gargano. I'll go with the dark horse of TakeOver. It's not the main event, far from it. But I think it's going to be a great match, and I can't wait for it. The whole weekend should be great. Survivor Series, on paper anyway, has potential. So we'll see. I know actually for a fact, I will not be watching Survivor Series live. Got to find out my work schedule to find out when I'll be working on Saturday. I probably won't be able to watch TakeOver live either, but whatever. It is what it is. I'm looking forward to both shows nonetheless. And that does it, guys, for episode 259 of #AskGSM here today for November 14th, 2018. Thank you guys for checking out the show. As always, I greatly appreciate your support. We'll be back next week with another all-new episode. But in the meantime, guys, if you want to send in a question to the show, tweet me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the #AskGSM. Find me on Facebook at facebook.com/gram.gsm.matthews. Leave a comment on the post I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. And last but certainly not least, drop your question down below in the comment section of this very video. I'll include it in next week's edition. So, of course, guys, enjoy TakeOver on Saturday, Survivor Series on Sunday. As I said at the start of the show, check out my exclusive interview with the WWE Hall of Famer, the former 11-time WWE World Champion, the Rated R Superstar Edge, on Daily DDT right now, talking all about the upcoming season of Vikings on the History Channel, returning for SmackDown 1000, how WWE helped him with his acting career, talking about the return of the Edge and Christian show, when fans can expect that to be back, and all this other great stuff. So check that out on Daily DDT. Enjoy the weekend, guys. I'm Graham GSM Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.